I had a piece of bread, and I wanted to find the maker of the piece of bread. I took the piece of bread and I broke it apart because obviously the maker has to be inside the bread. At least that was my thinking at the time. And I broke the bread apart into pieces looking for its maker. Now, I'm kind of aware that there are some things that are in bread. This one had some seeds in it, and it was actually a bit of a fruity bread, so it had some pieces of fruit in there, and I knew the maker was there. So the maker would have to be made up of some dough, a bit of water, some salt, some yeast, some fruit, maybe raisins or something, maybe cranberries. Not sure about the fruit types, and then some seeds, possibly sesame seeds or something. Not just sure, but the maker would have to be in here. So I took it apart. I took it completely apart to look for the maker. I couldn't find the maker of the piece of bread in the bread. I gave up on the piece of bread, and I went down to my workshop, and I found in a parts bin a piece of equipment. I don't really know this piece of equipment. It's just something I picked up in part of a trash bin somewhere. I was collecting tools, and wow, what is this thing? So I opened it up to find its maker. And obviously, from looking at the components in the piece of equipment, I could tell that there was aluminum, or we say in this part of the world, aluminium. It seemed that there was some iron and perhaps some copper. I saw some wires, some plastic of some sort, maybe surrounding the wires. I felt a bit of fluid in there, a bit oily, so there must be some oil. So the maker must be made up of these things. And then I saw like an electronic circuit board with some electronics in there. So obviously, I know what the maker is made of now, because I'm looking for the maker for this piece of equipment. It must be made of aluminum, iron, copper, some electronic bits that are made of all sorts of wonderful things, and some fluids, some chemicals, and so on. But I couldn't find the maker in the piece of equipment, not for want of trying. I looked for the maker. It was frustrated. Then I thought, maybe I'm thinking too small. Maybe it's hard to find the maker for the piece of bread in the piece of bread, and it may be a piece of equipment is too mundane to be able to find the maker, or there's something I'm missing. Maybe I don't have the equipment. But I stepped outside, and it was a clear night, and I was able to look up, and I could see the heavenly bodies. The moon was in the distance, but over to one side away from the moon, I could see the stars. A while ago, I could see the sun. Of course, that's down now. It's nighttime. And I looked up and I thought, the maker of all these things, he must be somewhere, the maker must be somewhere there, inside all of this, inside somewhere. Now, what would the maker be made of? Well, pretty much I have an answer now. The maker would have to be made of all of the stuff that makes up the thing I'm going to call the universe, whatever that is, but I'll call all that the universe. Why not? We call it that. So, yes. Okay, so the maker would be made up of some electrical things and some sound things and some heat and some cold and some minerals and some stardust and some radio frequencies and some light and yes, all of those things. Yes. But maybe I don't have the equipment, but I looked up and I couldn't find the maker in it either. Well, I abandoned my search for the maker and things like bread and equipment and the universe and thought, let's take a step back and let's see if I can find the purpose for the thing. Aha! So I went back to my piece of bread that had now been broken apart pretty badly, and I looked at it again, and I wiggled it, and I said, the purpose for the thing must be inside the thing. That's also pretty obvious to me. It's pretty obvious. So I looked at the purpose for the piece of bread, and I thought, it's got to be here somewhere. And I took the piece of bread, and I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just flatten it all out on a glass plate, because maybe then I can find the purpose for the piece of bread. And I have to say, I didn't do much better than hunting for the maker. I was just that little bit embarrassed. I don't know. So I thought, all right, well, maybe the bread is too mundane. I don't know. Let's go back to my piece of equipment. So I got the piece of equipment, all those things that are in it, those connections, that oil, that stuff that's there. And I thought, I'm going to find the purpose of this piece of equipment. And I have to say, maybe somebody smarter than me could find it, but I'd never seen anything like this before. So I took it all apart. Again, I broke everything apart, took it apart. I checked all the materials. I used a file to grind it. This thing is now useless. I can't put it back together. I didn't know what the purpose is. What is the purpose of this thing? And really didn't do very well attempting to find the purpose of this piece of equipment. So again, my conclusion was that maybe a piece of bread is too mundane, and a piece of equipment I can hold in my hand, maybe the purpose of those things is just hard to determine, like the maker, for what they are. So I stepped outside again, and it was still a clear night. It was a long night, as you can tell. I looked up, and I could see the moon has now gone a little farther down towards the horizon, and I have a clearer view of those beautiful sparkles in the sky, and I could see sort of wafts of sparkles up there that some people say maybe it's the Milky Way, and others it's something else. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to call it the universe anyways. It's a good enough word. Other people are using it. I probably can determine the purpose of this thing by looking at the inside of it. I tell you what, maybe I don't have the right equipment. I don't know, but I couldn't seem to find the purpose for the thing either. Is there a purpose for something so vast, so large, so complex? I don't know. My name is al.persohn. You can contact me at pastor@mascot.church or in the comments below if you like. This video is a follow-on from the last two, where we talked about why is there something rather than nothing, and then some general comments about the necessary being. Have you noticed that you can't find the maker of a thing inside the thing? Have you noticed that by and large, and maybe there are some exceptions if you know what's going on with a particular thing, it's difficult to find the purpose of a thing inside the thing. Probably that's a little bit easier if you see something that is, quote, purpose-built, and you recognize what the purpose is. But you can't find the thing inside the thing. Now, oftentimes people who will argue with what's called a theist position, or a Christian position, is more advanced, more involved than the theist position. The theist position is one that says there must be a God, there must be some creator, something out there, whatever. They'll often argue in this way, and sometimes they'll use very snide comments. Some well-known new atheists, pretty much on the ropes and debunked at the moment, but they'll use things like, oh, you just believe in a sky daddy. You just believe in a sky daddy. That's the title of this video. Someone up there in the sky who's your daddy, who looks after you. And of course, their position is they don't believe in a sky daddy at all. Well, Christians don't believe in a sky daddy either. Right. You know, when we say our Father who art in heaven, we're not referring to a sky daddy at all, because the sense of the sky daddy is a God who is within the universe, part of the universe, contained by the universe. When the atheist says, oh, you just believe in a flying spaghetti monster or a sky daddy or whatever, the sense that they have is that we Christians believe in some being bound by the natural universe. But no, we don't. Now, if you do hold to that position, you need to think a little more carefully. God as the necessary being is not within any of his creation. He's completely without his creation. Remember, I used the illustration of the piece of bread. Well, it's obvious to us that the maker of the piece of bread is not something made of dough and yeast and dried fruits and seeds and so on. No, the maker of the piece of bread has an entirely different nature than the bread itself. Completely. It's a human being, or maybe a machine made by human beings turning out the bread. The actual construction process might be a little bit different. The maker of that piece of equipment is not something made of aluminum and rubber and oil and so on. Well, it might be a robot making the equipment, but that robot was made ultimately by human hands as well. Something that is completely outside of, extra to, in addition to, well beyond the actual thing that it is creating, that piece of equipment. We look at the physical universe and we say, well, the maker of the universe, so what is God like? Is God made up of anything that is like the universe in itself? Okay, now we understand God to be other, completely other, totally different, utterly above his creation, ineffable. And this makes sense. Everything that we ever see that's made is made by something that is different, that is above itself, that is different from itself, that is transcendent from the thing that is being made, okay? Now, it's very interesting that people will hold to that. You'll often get people will say, of course, cars don't make more cars. Cheese doesn't make more cheese, and they'll use all sorts of examples. However, when it comes to the universe, it is either self-made, or it was made by other universes, or it came into being, or it has always been there, or it is self-organizing, or whatever. It seems that the sense and the willingness to acknowledge that a thing is made by something outside of itself ends at the most complex of all things, which is the entire physical universe with all of its properties, some of which are physical, some of which are not, radio frequencies and so on, whether we can measure them or not. It seems like that's where that conversation ends. Okay, everything is made by something outside of itself, bam, and then we're up against this, and we're not prepared to go any farther. And they say, well, you Christians just believe in a sky daddy, someone who answers all your problems. Well, the point here again, I need to say once more, is that atheists don't believe in a sky daddy, and neither do Christians. We do not believe that God is bound by or within his universe in any way at all, but that he, like any maker of anything, is utterly above it, made of completely different stuff, and so on. Now, this comes back to the last point that I made, or the second phase of my earlier pondering discussion, and that has to do with purpose. We also use the same thinking then with purpose. Now, we know enough about bread to know why the bread has been purposed, so it's a bit of a silly illustration. There are pieces of equipment I'm pretty sure I have down in my junk bin. I have no idea what those things do. I collected it somewhere, sometime in the past, but by and large, we could find that out these days with the wonder of technology that's around us. But ultimately, the purpose of a thing is not found within the thing itself. The purpose of this water bottle with nice, cool, sparkling water in it is not found within itself, but it is found within me, actually. I purchased the water bottle, and I filled it, and I put some sparkling in it this morning. Stand by. The purpose for bringing all of that together was something well beyond and outside those things. Now, I'm ending this discussion about why is there something rather than nothing and the necessary being, just to highlight this main point. Now, we need to ask then, what do we Christians believe, not only about the creation of things, but about the purpose of things? Psalm 19 makes this really clearly, states this clearly, that the heavens declare the glory of God. The earth is handiwork displays. Creation is there to demonstrate the glory and the wonder of God. And that then becomes the purpose. Our purpose as individuals to serve him and to glorify him and to honor him, that starts to make a lot more sense. So this isn't really like a theological discussion. It's much more to cap off that earlier one, that necessary being conversation. Okay, so let's just roll this back just really, really quickly. God is the necessary being. We're not saying as a logical necessity, but the functional necessary being. As the creator, as the one who purposes everything, is above the things that he creates and that he purposes. So God is not in his creation. You see, if God was in his creation, the Bible would instruct us to worship his creation as it would be something that contains him. But we are strictly told not to worship the creation in any way at all, because the creation is something that comes from him. He is greater than and above the creation. So there you go. If you like these videos, like, share, subscribe, send them to your friends, send them to your enemies. This is a simple conversation on a really wonderful topic. It is the topic that I'm calling Sky Daddy. I'm saying atheists don't believe in a sky daddy. Neither do Christians. God bless you. My name is Al.persohn. Come back again soon.